Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I am your host, Matt Morris. You are tuning into Matt Morris TV. We are live right now on Rumble and on YouTube at Matt Morris TV. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be having our first White House press secretary press conference for the last 2 weeks. As you all might have noticed, President Trump was traveling in Asia. He came back. He's been busy. This is the first White House press conference we are going to be getting here, tuning in together in about 2 weeks, and a lot has happened. Trump had his deals with China and various other Southeast Asian countries. Today is officially day number 35 of the ongoing government shutdown, folks. This is now tied for the longest government shutdown in all of United States history. In fact, this current shutdown will ultimately become the longest government shutdown in all of history. I have some news to share with you real quick. I'm just going to put this up on the big screen here. As of about an hour ago, the Senate Democrats have refused for the 14th time to reopen the federal government. They just voted today, about an hour ago. We don't have another vote in the Senate to reopen the government until tomorrow, which means this is going to be the longest government shutdown in all of recorded U.S. history. Even if the government reopens tomorrow afternoon when they next vote, they probably won't. But let's say it does, that'll be day number 36, aka the longest government shutdown of all time. Now, folks, Carolyn Levitt, maybe some special guests. Maybe she'll have some special guests today. But anyway, she's going to be coming out and speaking to all of us in about 18 minutes. So we are keeping an eye on the Associate Press page and the official White House page. Of course, a couple moments before she comes out and speaks to all of us, these pages will go live, and we're going to be tuning in together. Now, predominantly, I would imagine what we're going to be talking about is the nuclear option. President Trump says there are two N-words you should never say. There's the first N-word, and then there's the second N-word. One of those N-words is the nuclear option. Nuclear, you should never say it. Well, President Trump has been saying the N-word quite a lot lately. Nuclear. President Trump himself actually issued this massive statement just about 90 minutes ago on Truth Social. And I want to read through this with you folks real quick. But you know what? If I really want to be a professional broadcaster here today, I should have done this before I went live. I need to put a little message up here at the top left of the screen. So 1 p.m. Eastern, White House press conference. Massive news. Okay, so I need to get that up there in the top left so everybody tuning in, they know what the hell is going on. Okay, I want to say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for being here today. We're going to be covering all of this. There's going to be a lot to talk about. Let's see what President Trump had to say about 90 minutes ago about the shutdown and the nuclear option. President Trump said, "The Democrats are far more likely to win the midterms and the next presidential election if we do not terminate the filibuster, aka activate the nuclear option, because it will be impossible for Republicans to get common sense policies done with these crazed Democrat lunatics being able to block everything by withholding their vote." That is true. It is true. For 3 years, nothing will be passed and Republicans will be blamed. That is also true. Elections, including the midterms, will be rightfully brutal. If we do terminate the filibuster, we will get everything approved like no Congress in history. I apologize. I have a little bit of a cough right now, folks. We will have fair, free, and safe elections, no men in women's sports or transgender for everybody, strong borders, major tax and energy cuts, and we will secure our Second Amendment, which the Democrats will also terminate immediately. If we don't do it, they are far more likely to do well in the upcoming elections, which would mean a packed Supreme Court, 2 more states, and 4 more Democrat senators, D.C. and Puerto Rico, and 8 more electoral college votes. You guys know the Democrats are trying to add Puerto Rico, another one. So I remember the Democrats, they want to turn Washington, D.C. into a state. and they want to turn Puerto Rico into a state, which would effectively mean 2 more states for the Democrats, 4 more senators, and 8 more electoral college votes for the Democrats, on top of packing the Supreme Court. They've talked about this time and time again. Remember, Republicans, they are going to end the filibuster as soon as they get the chance. We know this because they already tried, and the only 2 people who didn't go along with it are now out of office. There were 2 other Democrat senators whose names I'm blanking on. They were not in favor of all of this, and the Democrats primaried them out. They kicked them out. They replaced them with even more radically progressive Democrat senators. Now, where were we? But they have a much less chance of winning if we have great policy wins after wins after wins. In fact, they will lose big and for a very long time. Terminate the filibuster now, end the ridiculous shutdown immediately, and then, most importantly, pass every wonderful Republican policy that we have dreamt of for years, but never have gotten. We will be the party that cannot be beaten, the smart party. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I don't really think there is any sensical reason to not go nuclear and terminate the filibuster and pass, like President Trump says, America First bill after America First bill after America First bill. We should do that. I haven't seen any single reasonable argument against doing that. The one argument people come back with is, well, if we terminate the filibuster, if we go nuclear and we drop the vote threshold in the Senate down from 60 down to 50, which is really what all of this means, then the Democrats, it might come back to bite us in the behind at some point. God forbid, maybe 10 years from now, the Democrats, they have control of the House. They have control of the Senate and the White House. Then the Democrats are going to do whatever they want. It's going to be terrible. It's going to come back to bite us in the behind. As a little bit of a reminder here, the Democrats, multiple senior ranking Democrats, have already promised to terminate the filibuster should they get in control of the country again. They've already said they're going to do it. It's already part of their plan. This is not speculative. They're going to do it anyway. Even if we do it or we don't do it, if Trump and the Senate Republicans terminate the filibuster or we don't terminate the filibuster, the Democrats have already said they are going to do it anyway. And even if that wasn't enough, as a little bit of a historical lesson here, the first 2 times the nuclear option or a form of the nuclear option was activated in the Senate was by the Democrats. The first time it ever happened, the first time the Senate ever went nuclear to change the rules of the Senate, the Democrats did it. And the second time the Senate ever went nuclear to change the rules of the Senate, it was done by the Democrats. The first 2 times the nuclear option has ever been invoked, it was invoked by the Democrats during the Obama administration. And now they're promising to terminate the filibuster in the future. President Trump is right. Listen, the fate of the nation is at stake. There is an existential crisis. We need to save the nation. We need to push the America First agenda right now while we have the House, while we have the Senate, and while we have the White House. Push it to the maximum capacity. Go nuclear. Do it. I am totally in lockstep with President Trump on this. President Trump doubled down shortly after he posted this. As if that wasn't explicit enough, President Trump said this morning, 3 hours ago, terminate the filibuster. Terminate the filibuster. President Trump himself is going nuclear. I see the question in the live chat from Steve. He says, well, then what are we waiting for? Some of the Senate Republicans don't want to do it. Some of the Senate Republicans, Senate Republican leader John Thune, he's hesitant. They don't want to do it. They're cautious. They're a little bit scared. So President Trump, when he is making these posts, he's going on Truth Social, he's making his media tours, talking to the press, nuclear option, nuclear option, nuclear option. Really, honestly, one of the big reasons why Trump is doing this, why did he make this post? Why did he make this post? Why is President Trump talking about all of this publicly? The reason why is because he's trying to put pressure on the Senate Republicans. President Trump is trying to put pressure on the Senate Republicans who right now, the Senate Republicans, they're kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if we should do it. I'm kind of worried. Trump is like, do it. And if you won't listen to me, then I'm going to whip up the base. I'm going to rally the base. Hey, Senate Republicans, if you're not going to do what I say, the president, then I'm going to get the voters involved. I'm going to whip up the base. I'm going to rally the base, and I'm going to try to get them, that's us, to put pressure on them. So Trump is trying to get us, all of us. Trump wants maximum pressure right now on the Senate Republicans. Go nuclear, terminate the filibuster. This is a pressure campaign President Trump is waging right now, and I hope it works because he's absolutely right. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson this morning spoke about this entire dynamic. I want to play this for you folks. Ladies and gentlemen, Carolyn Leavitt, White House press secretary, is going to be coming on out in about 9 minutes. Sometimes she's a little bit late. That's okay. We have a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on today. Let's see what House Speaker Mike Johnson had to say about all of this just earlier today.
Evidence speaks for itself.
Need to turn up the audio. This one's a little bit quiet. Turn that up.
So we're going above the heads of the so-called leadership, and we are appealing to the consciences of a handful of people in the Senate who want to do the right thing and just stop the pain for the American people. And we pray that today is that day. Maybe tying for the longest shutdown in history is something that they can claim as some sort of success.
Yeah.
But it's sickening. It's sickening to see a political game being played. We're not playing a game here. We never were. Back on September 19th, to remind you all again, we passed a clean, nonpartisan CR that's 24 pages in length, had not a single Republican priority on it. Why? Because we did it in good faith, because we didn't want this eventuality to occur. We knew it would be too painful for the people, and that's why we've always done the right thing, as everyone has said over and over. Now they won't, and we all know why. Yes, sir.
So early on in this clip, this is the big takeaway here. So far, you guys know that the leader of the Senate Democrats is a lovely, handsome individual. His name is Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer. He's the leader of the Senate Democrats. So far, the Senate Republicans and President Trump, they've been attempting to negotiate with Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is kind of calling the shots here on the Democrat side of the aisle. Well, Chuck Schumer is not really being negotiatory, to say the least. He wants his $1.5 trillion for illegal alien health care, and until he gets that, he's not going to do it. So what did House Speaker Mike Johnson say just now at the very beginning of this clip? He said, you know what? We are going over the heads. Now we're going over the head of Chuck Schumer. Now we are reaching out personally on an individual basis to all of the Democrat senators. Now we are bypassing, we are going over the head of, we are superseding Chuck Schumer. Now they're going right to the senators to try to get some of these Democrats to break, to fracture off out of Schumer's control and vote to reopen the government. Okay, another clip here from House Speaker Mike Johnson earlier today.
Trump involved in trying to whip some votes from Democrats?
Well, he was involved. Remember, before this all began, the four leaders went over to the White House. We sat across from him at the Resolute desk. Hakeem Jeffries was there, Chuck Schumer, myself, and Leader Thune in the Senate. And the president had a great dialogue. He said, give me your proposals, guys. Well, remember, they had just filed a $1.5 trillion demand for new spending, including giving $200 billion to illegal aliens to fund their health care again, to prop up NPR and PBS, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. They wanted to send billions of dollars back overseas to these crazy social programs in other countries. And the president said, well, obviously that's a non-starter. Talk to me about something that's real and reasonable. And they just stuck their thumb in his eye. So the president tried. He is the great deal maker, the art of the deal. He can negotiate the end of wars around the world. But he does not have enough with these guys to overcome their fear of the Marxist in the Democrat Party. There is a
Well, you know, you can't negotiate with someone, even if you are the best deal maker in all of the history of humanity. You cannot negotiate or make a deal with someone that does not want to negotiate or make a deal. I have a 2-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter. Has anybody here ever tried to negotiate with a toddler who's having a total meltdown? You might be as logical and as convincing as you possibly can be sometimes as a parent, but if that 2-year-old or 3-year-old or 4-year-old is just in meltdown mode, you're not going to make a deal. It's not going to happen. The deal is off. Sometimes it's just not going to happen. You got to wait it out. And that kind of seems to be the situation we are in right now. Now, speaking of waiting it out, today, later this evening, we have various elections all across the country. We have the gubernatorial election in New Jersey. We have the mayoral election in New York. with Zoran Mamdani, the anti-white Ugandan communist radical Muslim. He said explicitly that he wants to raise taxes on wealthy white people, to pay for all of his communist policies. This guy is out of his damn mind. And so this is one of the narratives right now is that potentially Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are waiting for this election in New York City to come to its close, to conclude, before they vote to reopen the government. That after today, maybe tomorrow. By the way, real quick, the Senate voted today for the 14th time to keep the government shut down. This is day number 35 of the ongoing government shutdown. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the Senate votes again. Okay? So tomorrow is day number 36. I guess there is a conceivable chance that the government reopens tomorrow. The New York City mayoral election will be over. It's done. That happens today. Tomorrow is day number 36. It would be technically the longest government shutdown in all of U.S. history. By tomorrow, they vote again. They could reopen it again tomorrow. I kind of have my doubts, but we got to see. We're going to be covering that tomorrow as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Karoline Leavitt is coming out to speak to us in about 3 minutes to let us know what's going on. Sometimes she is a little bit behind schedule. We have a live feed from inside of the White House press room. So I'm going to keep tabs on this. We're not going to miss a darn thing. But while we wait for Mrs. Leavitt to come on out and let us know everything that's going on behind the scenes here with the Trump administration, let's take a listen to what House Rep Steve Scalise had to say about this shutdown earlier today.
Democrats opening up the government. It's real straightforward. You vote yes or no. You vote yes because you want to put food on the table for 42 million low-income families. But if you vote no, maybe because you're afraid of some radicals in Portland or San Francisco or New York City, when you vote no, you are taking food off the table for 42 million low-income people, the least among us who need that help.
I love that he just said people, not Americans. Some of those 42 million people are most certainly Americans, but a lot of them, several million of them, are in fact not Americans. As we all know, we've had millions of illegal aliens in this country receiving federally funded food benefits in the form of SNAP and various other federally funded welfare programs, by the way, Medicaid and Social Security. All of this has come out now thanks to the Department of Government Efficiency. But not all of these people receiving these benefits are, in fact, Americans. Okay, a lot of them are people that should not be in the country at all.
6.7 million going without the Women, Infant, and Children program funding. WIC program is really, really important. Again, to very low-income people who need that help. Democrats have no problem shutting off that funding, causing that suffering, and to use their term, because they think they're getting some kind of leverage. We still don't know what the leverage is for. They're trying to leverage the American people, and they can't even articulate what it is they want.
That's true.
Yeah, $1.5 trillion wish list of crazy items like free health care for illegals, gutting a rural health care fund. Is that really the leverage they want to use the American people for?
And of course, what we have seen over the last now 35 days, good Lord, this is over a month long. Once again, this shutdown as of today is tied for the longest shutdown in all of U.S. history. Little fun fact here for those of you that have been paying attention over the last couple of years. The previous longest shutdown, we are tied with that today, 35 days long, similarly, took place in December and January 2018, 2019. December 2018, January 2019, 35 days long. Do you know why that happened? This was during, guess what? President Trump's first term. Isn't that a little bit weird? That's a little bit curious. Do you know what happened with that shutdown? It was 35 days long. President Trump was trying to get Congress to give him funding for a border wall, and the Democrats refused to pass a funding resolution that accommodated funding for President Trump's border wall, and they threatened to take away people's SNAP benefits. Sound a little bit familiar? They said, listen, Trump, we are not going to give you funding for the border wall, and unless you capitulate to us, The Democrats, we're going to have 35 million Americans at that point lose their food benefits, lose their federally funded SNAP benefits. Trump, do you want to make Americans go hungry, Trump? And I hate to say this, ultimately what happened was President Trump it was really less President Trump. It was more the congressional Republicans, a lot of rhinos at this point, a lot of rhinos at that point, 2018, 2019. The Senate Republicans, they capitulated. They gave up. They rolled over. They capitulated. They surrendered to the Senate Democrats. They said, okay, all right, we're not going to have funding for the border wall. Okay, no border wall, because they didn't want to risk putting a bunch of Americans, many of whom were not even Americans at all, as we now know, illegal aliens. They didn't want to take people's food benefits away. Well, now the dynamic has changed a little bit, right? Now it is not us who will be capitulating to the radical progressives. Now the radical progressives, they will capitulate to us. There is no other alternative. But this entire dynamic with this ongoing federal shutdown. The Democrats did exactly the same thing, literally point for point. They did exactly the same thing. They tried to extort money out of the federal government, hold the American people hostage, take away people's federally funded food benefits. They tried to shut down Trump's border wall. The exact same dynamic. They've already done this before. And this time, President Trump is not playing games. He's not playing around. Not only is President Trump not playing games and not going to surrender to them, in fact, he is putting public pressure on the Senate Republicans. Go nuclear. Screw these people. We are done making deals with the radical progressives. Not only do we not surrender to them, we go nuclear. We take everything from them. We are passing bill after bill after bill. And so I pray that the Senate Republicans actually listen to Trump. And in fact, I hope that they do go nuclear. We're going to find out, I guess. You know, here's what I would guess is going to happen. If the Democrats do not agree to reopen the government following the Mamdani election, the New York City mayoral election, that's when I think we'll see the nuclear option, right? Because right now that's kind of the idea. Well, maybe the Democrats, maybe they're going to reopen the government after the New York City mayoral election. If they don't, if that election comes and goes and the Democrats are still stalwart, they refuse to do it, then I think we are going nuclear. Then we are going nuclear, because there's no other excuse. For a while, people were saying that the Democrats were going to reopen the government after the No Kings protests. Well, they didn't. And now everyone's saying they're going to reopen the government after the Mamdani campaign or after the New York City mayoral election. Well, we're going to find out tomorrow or the next day. If they don't, again, it is time to go nuclear. It is absolutely time to go nuclear. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have a live feed of inside the White House press room. Don't worry, we're not going to miss anything. Carolyn Leavitt is not speaking yet. The microsecond she comes out, we will be on top of that. We're not going to miss anything. It seems as if the official White House page is live. She's coming out any minute. Don't worry about that. We're going to keep tabs. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a far left progressive. You've probably heard of him. His name is Charlemagne. He's a rapper he's some type of rapper or something. He's got a radio show. This guy absolutely hates President Trump. He endorsed Kamala Harris. He loves Kamala Harris. I want to show you something. This is late last night. Even this guy is saying, listen, Democrats, you got to open up the government. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. Even this guy is saying, listen, Democrats, you got to open it up. It's getting a little bit ridiculous. Take a look at this.
Democrats, you fought. It seemed like you lost the fight. At this point, go on, give it up. At least give the people some relief by getting the government back open.
Yeah, he is appealing to Democrats by citing issues like SNAP benefits and holiday travel. Yep. This is now the longest shutdown in U.S. history.
He's saying, Democrats, seems like you put up a fight. It's time to give it up. It's time to give it up. So the Democrat base, even their most loyal, radically progressive, Trump derangement syndrome individuals like Charlemagne. By the way, I never like to say the name he gives himself is Charlemagne the God. That's what he calls himself. I never say that second half because for me, I think that's blasphemous. Who are you? Who the hell are you to call yourself the God? Charlemagne the God. blasphemy, sacrilege. That's what I say. So I never use the entire name, but listen, buddy, you are most certainly not a god. You are some low IQ idiot, Kamala Harris supporting rapper or something. I don't even know what the hell you are. Now, we had Scott Bessent come out similarly earlier this morning talking about the shutdown. We need 5 more Democrats to turn out and vote alongside the Republicans to reopen this government.
I've called for 5 brave Democrats to come across the aisle. And, what's changed since we got the clean continuing resolution in the spring? 2 things. One, Senator Schumer's poll numbers, he's sinking like a stone. So we're being held hostage to his poll numbers. And then 2, the Democrats have tried to stop President Trump in the courts. It goes to SCOTUS, they get overruled. They've tried to stop President Trump in the mainstream media. That hasn't worked. So now they've shut down the government and they're harming the economy. So I think it would be great if 5 moderate Democrats became heroes, reopened the government, and for the entire shutdown, whether it's President Trump, Speaker Johnson, or Leader Thune, they've said reopen the government and we can have the conversation on health care, but we can't do it while the government's closed down.
Keep in mind, something very important to keep in mind here, okay? Everybody says that California, the radical progressives in California are ruining the country. And you know what? Sure, that's fair. Let's talk about New York State. Let's talk about New York. We spent a lot of time talking about the progressives in California. Let's talk about New York. Chuck Schumer is a senator from New York. Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Speaker, is from New York. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is from New York. Zohran Mamdani is from New York. I really think what is going on here with this government shutdown and in the House and in the Senate, you are having New York State and New York City political dynamics have nationally sweeping impacts. Because what is going on right now in the state of New York and New York City proper as well is you're having a struggle between, I guess, I don't even know what to call them, old school, maybe slightly more moderate Democrats versus new school, younger, new era of radically progressive Democrats. And so when I say like old school, slightly more moderate, I guess maybe we have to say that's Chuck Schumer. This is Hakeem Jeffries. Not that they are not progressive, but at least they are less progressive than people from the new school, the younger Democrats. They are insanely radically progressive. This is Mamdani. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Okay? And so what we've talked about time and time again is Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. They are doing everything they possibly can to maintain their base and not get replaced or primaried out, lose their job, kicked out of the House or kicked out of the Senate, because they're not progressive enough, right? Getting replaced by people that are more progressive like AOC and maybe Mamdani someday. So this, I would imagine, seems to be, this is a huge part of this dynamic as well, that this power struggle, this far left power struggle in New York State and in New York City is now having nationally sweeping consequences insofar as the federal government shutdown really as a direct result of what's going on in New York. The entire country is being held hostage by New York. Pretty much is the way to look at it. We had a statement from Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy earlier today. I want you to see this. The United States might have to shut down airspace across the country next week if Senate Democrats do not reopen the government by then, says Secretary Sean Duffy. Duffy says, if you bring us to a week from today, so starting next week, Tuesday of next week, Democrats, you will see mass chaos. You will see mass flight delays. You will see mass cancellations. And you may see us close certain parts of the airspace across the country because we just cannot manage it because we do not have air traffic controllers. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, there are a little over 13,000 air traffic controllers across the country that have been showing up to work every day for the last 35 days. Day number 35 of this shutdown. Air traffic controllers are showing up to work every single day, keeping the skies safe, managing the airplanes. They're not getting paid. They're missing paychecks right now. So it's like, how long? This is already an incredibly stressful job. Air traffic controllers, very stressful job. I think we all know that. And then on top of that, now they are overworked. They're getting tired. They're not getting paid. They're over a month now without a paycheck. How much longer can these people go? Sean Duffy's saying, I'm not going to keep on overworking these people and not paying them. We're going to have to shut down certain airspaces across the country because the Democrats have shut down the government. We cannot push these people. These are a group of people, air traffic controllers. You do not want to push them too far because if they're overworked and they're tired and they're stressed out, that's when mistakes do happen. And that's when airplanes start falling out of the sky, or you start having airplanes crash into each other on the runway. Okay, so that's the message from Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy earlier today. Donald Trump this morning, 2 hours ago, gave another update. This is a big one. President Trump himself, he says, SNAP benefits, which increased by billions and billions of dollars during crooked Joe Biden's disastrous presidency, due to the fact that they were haphazardly handed to anyone for the asking as opposed to just those in need. We saw, I wish I had the chart for you guys right now. We saw SNAP benefits increase by over twofold during the Joe Biden presidency. Over 2 times as many people were getting SNAP benefits. I wonder why. That might have something to do with the 25 million people that illegally invaded our country during that same time frame. Anyway, so that's what he's talking about here. President Trump is saying, we are not going to be giving SNAP benefits to anyone during this government shutdown until the radical left Democrats agree to open up the government. SNAP benefits are not going out. The Democrats can easily open up the government. They can easily do it. All we need are 5 more of these Democrats to come on out and vote, but they're not. Thank you for your attention to the matter. Now, luckily, to kind of piggyback on that point right there, so Trump is saying SNAP benefits are not going out. However, President Trump, breaking news as of this morning, President Trump has tapped into his tariff revenue to keep the food assistance program alive for women, infants, and children. He's taking $750 million from the tariff funds that his own tariffs have generated over the last several months. He's taking the tariff revenue to pay for the food assistance of women, infants, and children. That's great. Yeah, WIC, W-I-C. Great. That is good news. He's keeping those most vulnerable people safe and taken care of. Okay. The same policies Democrats promised would cause a depression are actually saving these people, saving these vulnerable people during the ongoing Democrat shutdown. $450 million was already readied up on Friday, on top of $300 million that was previously readied up. Open up the government shutdown, and all of this will come to an end. Now, folks, I'm keeping tabs. Do not worry. We are waiting right now for White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt to come on out. She's going to be speaking to us any minute now. She is 14 minutes late. That's actually, frankly, kind of normal. So the second she comes on out here, I'm going to stop yapping and I'm going to throw her up, and she is going to give us the real breakdown of everything that's going on behind the scenes inside of the Trump administration. Until then, I saw a report here from last night talking about the numerous ways in which people are engaging in fraud as it relates to the SNAP food program. So take a look at this.
Like most government programs, SNAP is susceptible to abuse, and there are several types of abuse that we've become familiar with. One is that a cashier runs a $100 EBT card transaction for food, but gives the customers $50 in cash instead of groceries. Or a recipient sells the balance to another person of their EBT card.
Yeah.
You can also falsify your application by claiming fewer household members or less income. You can use fake pay stubs or falsify your address to meet eligibility requirements. And then there's the skimmers. Skimmers are placed on grocery checkout terminals, and it copies EBT data to be later used in making duplicate cards. So with that in mind, it's fair to ask, is SNAP serving its purpose? Are we doing enough to protect the program for the Americans who truly need it? There's an interesting trend on social media right now. It's a trend where black men are suggesting the expiration of SNAP benefits might actually be a blessing in disguise.
Oh.
This program is keeping a lot of people unmarried, uneducated, don't want to, do anything that will hinder their opportunity, their chance to lose their benefits.
Only in America do we have people that have $1,200 iPhones checking to see if their SNAP benefits hit.
Anyone who's on welfare, not for a disability, but because they can't provide for themselves, should not have the ability to vote in our society.
I don't have kids, but there's no way that I have kids and I'm waiting on somebody else to feed them.
There you have it. Now, I'll give you a little bit of a personal anecdote here. I want to share something with you. I'm 31 now. I think I must have been 20 or 21. I was going to university, and I lived in this house with 4 other guys all going to the same university. It was a big, college bro house I lived in for a year. Now, there was one of my roommates that lived in this house. I'll never forget it. He was receiving, in Oregon State, he was receiving federally funded food benefits. He did exactly this. He traded every month. He traded his food card for cash at a loss. It's like a $200 food card. He would trade it for $150 in cash. He would get the cash after trading off the food card, and then he would go and buy marijuana with it. And so, and he was doing this for months and months and months and months, and that's what he did. He just wanted to, that's just what he wanted to do, I guess. And so, in a almost comical, it's also depressing and terrible. This was federally subsidized marijuana. This was taxpayer subsidized marijuana is what this was. All of us taxpayers, we were subsidizing his marijuana use because he was trading the food card for cash and then going and buying weed week after week and month after month. So that I was like, dude, really? Now, folks, we have a minute. We are waiting for White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt coming on out. She's going to clue us in. But, while we have a minute here, I want to take a look at some super chats with you folks. I can put them just like this. We're not going to miss anything because we've had some very generous super chats over the last couple minutes. And I think now's probably a good time to take a look at them. The first one of the day, by the way, thank you very much, Lady Laux. She says, "Hi, Matt. I wrote Senator Jim Banks yesterday and said, go with the nuclear option and fundamentally change America back to set the progressives back 100 years. We have a chance to save the country permanently." I really think, in fact, President Trump said this on the campaign trail, 2024 campaign trail. He said, if you vote for me, if you put me back in the White House, I will permanently fix the country. I will fix the country so properly that the Democrats will never be able to tear it down again. And remember, this was very dramatic. Everybody said, oh, does this mean that you're a dictator? Are you a dictator, President Trump? This was a big drama during the campaign. But you know what? This is that moment. Listen, do it. Fix it. I'm with you. Go nuclear. Not only fix the country and make it better, but we have to undo the damage the Democrats caused during the last 4 years. We have to undo their damage. Thank you, Lady Laux. MIG says, what's going on in Venezuela? Why are we arming military bases in Puerto Rico? If you remind me, maybe at the end of the broadcast, that's kind of tangential to everything we're talking about right now. Totally different whiplash conversation. We've talked a lot about Venezuela. We can talk about that later on in today's broadcast, maybe. So I'm going to put that one on the back burner. Thank you, Mick. Thank you very much. I will say this. It seems like Nicolas Maduro probably does not have long. He's probably not going to be running that country for much longer. Let's say that for the time being. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. We have another one here from BJ says, ZZZ, Trump always late. These live events, they are always maybe 20 or 25 minute late. That's why I prepare a show, just in case we've got to make some small talk here and go through the daily news. Thank you very much. Calvin says, the second we end the filibuster, we need to pass voter ID ASAP. We need to take serious action to make sure Democrats never win again. True. Absolutely true. I've said this time and time again. I think we all agree. Listen, terminate the filibuster, go nuclear. We drop the threshold down from 60 to 50 plus one tiebreaker, Vice President J.D. Vance, and we pass every day, every single day until midterms, and hopefully after, bill after bill after bill after bill. And the bills don't have to be big. One-page bill. This is the one-page voter ID bill. Okay? Boom. Pass it. Is that Carolyn Leavitt? No, that's another blonde woman. Okay, so she's coming out soon. Okay, I'm with you. I agree. I'm totally on board. And this is the President Trump stance right now also. Remember when President Trump, he came down in 2015, that golden escalator, he said, I'm going to teach the Republicans how to win. You guys have been losing for a long time. I'm going to teach you how to win. And in fact, we're going to be winning so much, you are going to get sick of winning. Just, hey, listen, let him do his thing. If Trump says we're going nuclear, time to go nuclear. Listen, I don't really care so much about the Senate GOP or the congressional GOP. I care about President Trump. Okay? The degree to which I support the congressional GOP is the degree to which they support President Trump. Congressional GOP, little message from me here, at least. I'm just one guy. Do what Trump says. He has the mandate. We voted for him. Your job is to enact his America First agenda. If Trump says jump, you say how high. That's the relationship I want here, okay? That's how I view this dynamic. If Trump says go nuclear, you had better start plugging in the nuclear launch codes. That's how I view this dynamic. Do what he says. Thank you. Bovine says, I say again, shut it down. It's not popular. It's needed. You mean keep the government shut down? Yeah, I think probably we're not going to do that. Thank you very much. Michael Ewan Madden, he says, this whole thing is just designed to justify replacing almost every human with a government pension with AI. Never have enough staff so that the constant angry faces justify replacing staff with robots. Hey, maybe so. Hey, I appreciate that super chat. That might be the case. There might be some artificial intelligence ulterior motive. That could be the case. Ladies and by the way, thank you very much for those super chats. Can I tell you something can I get a little bit personal here? Ladies and gentlemen, I kind of believe that YouTube has been suppressing my channel. I uploaded a video yesterday and I'm looking at the back end. I'm looking at all the statistics. I've got the analytics, who's watching it, how many people, how many subscribers, non-subscribers, who's tuning in. Yesterday, I would bet my life that the video I uploaded yesterday was suppressed by YouTube. No doubt about it. And then I'm looking at the numbers of today's live show on YouTube. I'm thinking, man, normally a live show like this, we might have 2 times as many viewers. Right now, we should have 20,000 viewers on YouTube. We've got 11,000 and almost 1,000 over on Rumble. I'm saying something kind of weird is going on here on YouTube. Okay. And maybe it's a bug. Maybe it's not, I don't know, maybe it's a little one-day glitch. Oh, there she is, but something's a little bit weird.
We are now on day 35 of the Democrat government shutdown. The Democrats' obstructionism will break the record for the longest government shutdown in American history tonight. The Democrats are intentionally hurting American families, workers, and businesses with this shutdown to fight for free health care for illegal aliens and to appease their radical left-wing base. And it's a total disgrace. This past weekend, Americans traveling to weddings, funerals, vacations, and meetings faced significant flight disruptions at airports across the country because of staffing shortages. On Sunday alone, more than 5,000 flights traveling to and from U.S. airports were delayed. Since the Democrat shutdown began, 4 times as many staffing shortages have been reported at air traffic control facilities compared to last year. TSA checkpoint wait times ballooned past 3 hours at Houston's George Bush Intercontinental Airport, with some passengers enduring up to 5 hours in line. At nearby William P. Hobby Airport in Texas, security wait times are routinely exceeding 1 hour. More than 13,000 air traffic controllers are continuing to work without pay. Because of the Democrats, these men and women who keep our airspace safe and moving will miss a second paycheck in a row this Friday if Democrats refuse to open the government. Let me be clear to our incredible air traffic controllers across the country. President Trump and Republicans want you to get your paychecks. Yep. They want you to be paid. Please call on your Democrat senators and tell them to side with President Trump and Republicans to vote to reopen the government. Our nation's 4 largest airlines, United, Delta, American, and Southwest, have now all endorsed the Republican, nonpartisan, clean funding bill to end the government shutdown. Major unions, collectively representing tens of thousands of pilots, have also joined the airlines in calling on Democrats to pass the clean, nonpartisan CR. The travel industry is also imploring Democrats to end the shutdown and reopen the government. Nearly 500 companies and groups in the travel business, including casinos, hotels, and convention bureaus, signed a public letter warning that America's travel economy has already lost $4 billion due to this Democrat shutdown, and they have called for the Republican CR to be passed, saying Americans expect and deserve a fully functioning federal government during the peak holiday travel season. Never before have we seen private industry and union leadership so unified on the same issue, rallying behind Republicans in such a vocal way. The Democrats have completely lost the plot. They are endangering the safety, prosperity, and livelihoods of millions of Americans. It's well past time Democrats do what they did 13 times under Joe Biden and pass the clean funding bill extension. All we need are 5 Democrat senators to put country over party and vote to end this reckless shutdown. In other news, tomorrow will mark the 1-year anniversary of President Trump's historic election victory, where he won nearly 80 million votes, the popular vote, in all 7 swing states. This was the ultimate poll on November 5th. The president secured a mandate to make America great again, and he has delivered in record time. Never before have we had a president who has kept their promises like President Trump has. I'd like to go over a few of those with you. In less than 10 short months, President Trump signed the largest middle-class tax cut in history, including no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security to put more money back into the pockets of the American people. The president ended the southern border invasion of the Biden administration, made our border the most secure in history, and he is carrying out the largest mass deportation campaign of illegal aliens in our nation's history to protect our homeland, just as promised. President Trump has aggressively taken on drug cartels by declaring them as foreign terrorist organizations and even blowing up narco-terrorists who have tried to poison the American people with fentanyl and other illegal narcotics. President Trump defeated the Biden inflation crisis, and he continues to implement a pro-growth, America First economic agenda to make America affordable again, and we are seeing the results of that every day. Inflation has remained low and steady, averaging just 2.5% compared to the painful average of 5% under Biden, and we know it was historically higher than that for most of President Biden's term.
That was bad.
Meanwhile, real private sector wages are on track to rise by almost $1,500 since President Trump took office, a significant change to the Biden years where private sector wages declined and were being wiped out by inflation. President Trump has ended the reckless war on American energy and unleashed energy dominance, with gas prices now plummeting to their lowest average levels in more than 4 years. President Trump implemented powerful tariffs to rebalance America's trade deals, protect American workers, and returning our country to be a manufacturing superpower once again. As a result, the president has secured trillions and trillions of dollars in private and foreign investments into the United States, which are creating high-paying jobs for the greatest workforce in the world. The president has restored America's place as the leader of the free world through his unwavering peace through strength foreign policy that has already ended 8 wars and counting. And the president ended illegal DEI initiatives in our federal government and is returning our country to a merit-based society based on common sense. President Trump protected opportunities for women and girls to compete safely and fairly by continuing to keep men out of women's sports. Americans have a president who works tirelessly, literally 24/7, to improve their lives and make our country better than it has ever been before. So with that, today we will open it up to questions, and we will start with our independent journalist in our new media seat, Julio Rosas. Julio, please start. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Caroline. So over the weekend in Mexico, a mayor in Michoacan, Carlos Manzo, he was assassinated while celebrating Dia de Muertos with his family. His assassination has sparked a lot of outrage. A lot of Mexicans are very upset. They're blaming President Claudia Sheinbaum for not taking the cartel threat seriously enough.
Yep.
Yesterday, she said that, once again, she's not going to allow any foreign military intervention to take on the cartels on Mexican soil, and that Mexico is not going to pursue a drug war similar to what they've done in the past.
Should do it anyway.
So my question is President Trump satisfied with Claudia Sheinbaum's approach to cartels? And if not, has Manso's assassination kind of opened up some new options for the United States to pursue regarding cartels?
Well, first of all, with respect to this specific news item and this alleged assassination that took place in Mexico, I know the Trump administration, we are aware of that, and of course we condemn all political violence anywhere in all forms. As for Claudia Sheinbaum and the president's relationship with her, I think he has a lot of respect for her as president of Mexico, and he also really appreciates the coordination that she has provided to the Trump administration. I can't speak for her and what she's doing internally in her country. I can speak for the president in saying we are continually pushing Mexico to do more to tackle the drug trafficking and the drug cartels within their country, and we are working with them in any way that we can. And the president has obviously used the full range of executive options in his authorities to crack down on drug trafficking at our southern border and to designate these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations and additional actions as well.
Just one more question.
Sure.
So at the Antifa roundtable that we were at just last month, myself and the other panelists made the recommendation to the president for, speaking of foreign terrorist organizations, to have Antifa not just be domestic terrorist organization, but be designated as a foreign terrorist organization since they have cells in other countries. He mentioned to Secretary Rubio, because he was in the room at the time, to look into that. So I just wanted to see if there's an update on that.
Sure. That process is most definitely taking place. I don't have any announcements for you on that today, but I can certainly assure you the administration is working on it, and I'll check in on it and get back to you, Julio. It's a good question. Thank you very much.
It's been a busy 2 weeks.
Caroline, Zohran Mamdani blamed the president for bomb threats and intimidation at polling locations. He said, quote, part of the general approach of the Trump administration has taken to intimidate voters with baseless allegations of voter fraud as a means of trying to repress the voice of Americans across this country. I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Yeah, I saw those comments from Mamdani. I think they are completely irresponsible, and they are based on zero evidence. And I think this is just another example of how the Democrat Party unfortunately stands for nothing. All they stand against is President Donald Trump. And I think it's quite sad to see that we have someone at the top of the ticket on an election day today saying such things about the president when he obviously had absolutely nothing to do with those threats.
And on the shutdown, Democrats have been pretty quiet about the president's push for the nuclear option, terminating the filibuster. Is there any concern around here that Democrats might actually want Republicans to get rid of the filibuster so that one day, when they're in power again, the door's already open for them to pack the Supreme Court, give statehood to D.C. and Puerto Rico, make mail-in balloting permanent, those kinds of things?
I think the president has been very realistic and strong in his position on the filibuster. He's been very vocal about it. I just spoke to him about it. He feels really strongly about this. Republicans need to play tough and they need to play smart. That's how the president feels. And we know that Democrats, if they are ever given a chance at power again in this city, they will absolutely take away the filibuster from the United States Senate. In fact, you had 49 Democrats who already voted to do this before. The only reason it did not move forward was because you had 2 Democrats who are no longer in office because they were run out of town by the far left radical base of their party.
That is right.
And so President Trump is quite clear on this. He wants to see Republicans move as many good pieces of legislation for our country forward in the next 3 years of his administration as they possibly can. And the filibuster is one means to doing that.
Talked to Johnson and Thune about it. I know that they had both voiced some opposition. Have there been any conversations with them?
He has. He's made his position to them very clear, both publicly and privately.
Can you help clear up some confusion about SNAP benefits? Because the president just posted that they will only be given out when the radical left Democrats open the government and not before. But just yesterday, the administration said it would comply with a court order to expend the full amount of SNAP contingency funds by end of business day yesterday. So did the administration distribute that money or defy that court order?
No, the administration is fully complying with the court order. I just spoke to the president about it. The recipients of these SNAP benefits need to understand it's going to take some time to receive this money because the Democrats have forced the administration into a very untenable position. We are digging into a contingency fund that is supposed to be for emergencies, catastrophes, for war. And the president does not want to have to tap into this fund in the future. And that's what he was referring to in his Truth Social post. So the Department of Agriculture, as for the latest SNAP payment in the judge's order, put out guidance to states today on how to get that money to the recipients of SNAP. But it's going to take some time. The best way to get the full amount of SNAP benefits to those beneficiaries is for Democrats to reopen the government. So to anyone who is a SNAP beneficiary at home who needs that assistance, and the president was just saying, this is for people who are truly needy, who need food, who need this assistance from the United States government. Democrats are holding it up and making it difficult for the administration to get those payments out the door. So if you are at home and you want your SNAP benefits, call the Democrats and tell them to reopen the government.
Blocking that contingency fund for the future if this shutdown lingers on?
Look, the president does not want to have to continue to dip into a contingency fund that doesn't even have enough money, by the way, to fund the full program. It takes $9 billion to get the full scale of the benefits out the door. This contingency fund only has about $5 billion in it. So again, Democrats need to reopen the government so we can get these benefits out the door for people who truly need them. Kate.
Thanks.
The president suggested that if Mamdani wins, that he would cut federal funding to New York. How much funding would be impacted? What would be impacted there?
Cut all of it.
We won't get ahead of the election results, nor will I speak to what the president may do in the future. We'll see how tonight goes, and then I'll let him speak on it further.
And why did the administration exclude Democratic lawmakers last week? There was a briefing about U.S. strikes on alleged drug trafficking boats. Why were those Democrats excluded?
The administration has briefed Congress on these matters 8 separate times, and Democrats have been included in those briefings. In fact, I know that Secretary Rubio will be on Capitol Hill tomorrow to brief the Gang of 12, which includes Democrats as well. So the president's made it very clear, if senators want to understand the administration's operations against narco drug traffickers, we are very happy to speak with them about that, and we will continue to do so. But we've been incredibly transparent. As I said, there's been 8 briefings on this topic, with the 9th coming tomorrow. Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. There's been some reporting out there about the possibility of furloughed workers not getting back pay. We know that the president signed that bill into law in his first term. Does the administration guarantee that all furloughed workers will get back pay?
This is something we are very much open to discussing with Democrats as part of the discussions about the continuing
Chuck Schumer should have to pay them with his own money.
And it's something that Republicans are talking with Democrats about right now. I won't get ahead of those negotiations or discussions.
That's a possibility that may not happen, even though it's law.
I just said Republicans in the White House are very much open to discussing this with Democrats.
And just one last question. As this government shutdown now drags on, about to make history as the longest government shutdown in American history, can you talk about what the president is personally doing to try to see an end to this?
He's pushing Republicans to keep voting and to keep opening up the Senate floor to vote for the clean continuing resolution.
And to go nuclear.
He had the Senate Majority Leader and the House Caucus Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, here at the White House to talk about this in the very early stages, to give them a chance to come to their senses and avoid this entire government shutdown at the very beginning. And they chose not to. And I think it's been very clear to everyone in this room and to everyone across the country that the Democrats are playing partisan politics with our United States federal government. And all Republicans have wanted to do for the last 35 days is reopen the government. That has been the president's position since day one. It is his position today on day 35. And all we need are 5 common sense Democrats with have a little bit of courage and come to the table and vote with Republicans. I saw Senator John Fetterman on television last night saying that he hopes more folks in his party will step up. And we certainly agree with him on that point. Sure.
Caroline, the president posted on Truth Social that the voting underway in California is, quote, rigged. What evidence does he have of that, and what does it mean that mail-in ballots in that state are under legal and criminal review? By whom and why? And also, in this vein, does the White House still plan to issue an executive order banning mail-in voting, and what legal authority do you have to do that?
The White House is working on an executive order to strengthen our elections in this country and to ensure that there cannot be blatant fraud, as we've seen in California with their universal mail-in voting system. It's absolutely true that there's fraud in California's elections. It's just a fact. It is just a fact. They have a universal mail-in voting system, which we know is ripe for fraud. And if you want to deny that, I'm happy to provide you all of the evidence for it. I'd be glad to send that to you after this briefing.
Rigged.
fraudulent ballots that are being mailed in the names of other people, in the names of illegal aliens who shouldn't be voting in American elections. There's countless examples, and we'd be happy to provide them. As for executive action the White House is taking, yes, we are looking into that. And like any executive order, of course, any executive order the president signs is within his full executive authority and within the confines of the law. Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. I've got two questions I'd like to ask you about New York, but first I'd like to ask you about breaking news from the Attorney General. She revealed just about an hour ago that the Biden Justice Department seized President Trump's official first-term phone and subpoenaed his private phone records. Do you have a reaction to that? And also, do we know if they actually got those private call records?
I saw the Attorney General's post on that. For additional questions, I would refer you to the Department of Justice, but I think this is just further evidence of the egregious overreach and weaponization of government that took place under the previous White House against then former President and now President Donald J. Trump. It was a clear effort by the Biden White House and the Biden DOJ to go after the president, and this is just further evidence of that.
On New York, we've
And
seen
Arctic Frost, too.
messages that he's put out, but could you describe how he's feeling as a New Yorker watching this election?
Well, the president is a New Yorker and he loves New York. It is his home. He talks about that all of the time, and he's made his thoughts on this election quite clear, I think, himself. In the back, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Over the weekend, there were reports.
I was going to you in the green, but go ahead and then you can have your question.
Thank you. Over the weekend, there were reports that President Trump was due to host President of Syria, Ahmad al-Sharia, on Monday. Do you have any preview for that meeting? Is he expected to invite him to join the U.S.-led anti-ISIS coalition?
I can confirm that that meeting will be taking place here at the White House on Monday, and this is part of the president's efforts in diplomacy to meet with anyone around the world in the pursuit of peace. And as you know, when the president was in the Middle East, he made the historic decision to lift sanctions on Syria to give them a real chance at peace. And I think the administration, we've seen good progress on that front under their new leadership. And so he will be here at the White House on Monday, and I'll let the president speak further on it on Monday. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. I was just curious, you had mentioned there that President Trump, as we know, has been speaking with Republican leaders in Congress about reopening the government. Is he involved in any other negotiations, and is he prepared to sign something if a deal does come out by the end of this week? On top of that, with SNAP benefits, does he have any authorities or considering any authority there to release more funds to help people who are desperately needing these benefits?
So look, I think I've already answered the question on SNAP. We're complying with the court's order, and we're getting that partial payment out the door as much as we can and as quickly as we can, but it's going to take some time because, again, this is a prorated payment that we're tapping into a contingency fund for. The best way to get those payments out the door is for Democrats to reopen the government. But yes, the president is in constant communication with his friends on Capitol Hill. They know, they call, he answers, he picks up the phone. He's a very transparent president in that way. And as soon as the Democrats pass the clean continuing resolution, President Trump will be here to sign it. Michael.
Thank you, Caroline. President Trump has threatened to go into Nigeria guns ablazing if Nigeria's government does not stop the killing of Christians in that country. Has the White House heard back from Nigeria's government on this threat?
Good question.
As the president stated, Michael, if the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the United States will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may take action to wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities, especially against innocent women and children. I don't have any further announcements on that for you today, but I can assure you the President of the United States is watching this situation unfold very closely, as is our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Question, Caroline. President Trump has endorsed Andrew Cuomo in New York City's mayoral race. He has not by name endorsed Winsome Sears in Virginia's gubernatorial race. Why is that?
Look, as you know from this podium, I'm quite limited in what I can say with regards to ongoing political elections. I think the president has spoken for himself and what he wants to see take place in these elections today.
Hello? Oh, we're back.
I
Okay.
think he feels very positive and strongly about it. As you know, he recently, a few weeks back, spoke to Prime Minister directly when he celebrated in the Oval Office Diwali with many high-ranking Indian American officials here at the White House. We have a great U.S.
Diwali.
ambassador to India in Mr. Sergio Gore, who will represent our country very well. And the president and his trade team continue to be in very serious discussions with India with respect to that topic. So I know the president has great respect for Prime Minister Modi, and they speak pretty frequently. Thank you.
Hi, yes. The air traffic controller crisis ongoing. Secretary Duffy said he will now start to cancel and ground flights next week to maintain safety. Should people fly next week given this new information? And
I
is
wouldn't.
the administration encouraging people
Nope.
to stop flying altogether and look at alternative transportation modes?
The administration is encouraging Democrats to reopen the federal government so this chaos and disruption to our air traffic control system in the United States of America stops. It is ridiculous that we have even gotten to this place and that the Democrats have continued to shut down the government with 35 days, our air traffic controllers continuing to work unpaid, every single major airline in our country coming out and begging the Democrats to please reopen the government. And you had a Democrat staffer who was quoted, I believe in Politico a few weeks back, saying, short of planes falling out of the sky, we are not going to reopen the government. That is a reckless and dangerous statement from someone who didn't want to put their name on that statement. But we know it came from the Democrat Party. And I think we're very clear. We want to reopen the government so we can resume travel in the safest and most efficient way possible, especially as we head into the busiest travel season of the month. We have Thanksgiving in a few weeks. And so Americans across the country need to make it very clear to their Democrat representatives that we want this government to be reopened so we can resume safe and efficient travel. Fran.
Caroline, as of last I checked, the president still had not commented on the death of former Vice President Dick Cheney. Is the White House involved in funeral arrangements in any way? Does the president plan to speak at the funeral? Has he spoken to anyone in the Cheney family today? And does the White House have an opinion on whether or not the former vice president should lie in honor or stay in the Capitol?
I don't believe the White House is involved in that planning, or at least hasn't gotten to it yet. I know the president is aware of the former vice president's passing, and as you saw, flags have been lowered to half staff in accordance with statutory law. Jasmine.
Thank you. Back on the question of the filibuster, how much political capital is President Trump willing to expend to get Republicans to do what he's asking? I mean, will we see him at the Hill? Will he be calling folks over here? What exactly is President Trump planning to do outside of these true socials and maybe some of these private conversations to get Republicans to fall in line?
Look, I think you'll see. I think you'll see the president continue to engage very strongly and consistently with his friends on Capitol Hill. I don't have any meetings to read out for you at this time, but I think you should stay tuned and keep your eyes on Truth Social on this matter. The president's making his position on it quite clear. And again, he is right. Republicans need to play tough. We know that this is what the Democrats will do if they are ever given the keys to power again.
Nuclear.
And he wants to pass as many good pieces of legislation as we possibly can for our country and for our people. That includes election integrity reforms. It includes additional tax policy. It includes, fixing our immigration that only Congress can. And the president fears with a Democrat Party that is so radical and opposes everything he does and everything he says, this is the only option for Republicans to move forward. Karen.
Question. President Trump said to CBS in the 60 Minutes interview that he did not know the Binance founder, which he pardoned. What exactly did he mean for that? I know it caused.
He means he does not know him personally. He means he does not have a personal relationship with this individual. And when it comes to pardons, the White House takes them with the utmost seriousness, and the president understands the responsibility that he has as president to issue clemency and issue pardons to individuals who are seeking that. That's why we have a very thorough review process here that moves with the Department of Justice and the White House counsel's office. There's a whole team of qualified lawyers who look at every single pardon request that ultimately make their way up to the President of the United States. He's the ultimate final decision maker. And he was very clear when he came into office that he was most interested in looking at pardoning individuals who were abused and used by the Biden Department of Justice and were over-prosecuted by a weaponized DOJ. And the individual you're referring to, that was certainly the case. Even the judge in his case said that the sentencing that the Biden administration was asking for was egregious and went too far. And so the president is correcting that wrong, and he has officially ended the Biden administration's war on the cryptocurrency industry, and I think that's the message he sent with this pardon. Karen, yes.
Back on the issue of back pay for furloughed workers, you said that the White House is open to discussing that with Democrats, but what would that discussion even be? There was a law, the president signed it in 2019. What could a discussion look like? Why is that even open for discussion?
Look, Karen, as I said, Republicans are talking about that with Democrats right now, and I don't want to get in the middle of those sensitive conversations. But as we've complied with the SNAP order, the White House, the administration is always going to comply with the laws. We're always going to comply with the ruling of judges across the country. But
I wish they wouldn't.
Republicans are discussing this matter with Democrats
I wish they wouldn't.
right now.
Why would there even be a consideration of
Do not
paying
comply.
those
Round
workers,
up
though, Caroline?
News Nation. Big day in the Supreme Court tomorrow with President Trump's tariff policy facing a legal challenge. What's at stake with that case? And if the Supreme Court rules against the Trump administration, what is Plan B for trade policy?
I'll tell you, the White House is always preparing for Plan B. It would be imprudent of the president's advisors not to prepare for such a situation. With that said, we are 100% confident in the president and his team's legal argument in the merits of the law in this case, and we remain optimistic that the Supreme Court is going to do the right thing. The importance of this case cannot be overstated. The president must have the emergency authority to utilize tariffs. Look at what President Trump has been able to do with the leverage and the power of tariffs. He's been able to sign peace deals all over the world and end global conflicts and literally save lives. He's been able to bring in trillions of dollars of investments into our country. In fact, this year alone, we are going to cut the deficit by $600 billion, namely because of the president's effective use of tariffs. And the president strongly believes that economic security is a matter of national security, and tariffs have a lot to do with that. And this case is not just about President Trump. It's about the use of this emergency authorization for tariffs for future presidents and administrations to come, and we're confident and hopeful that the Supreme Court will do the right thing. Kristen.
Why did President Trump get an MRI during his recent visit to Wall Street?
Look, as President Trump said, he would inquire with the physicians. I'll check back on that. But as the physical itself stated, Kristen, and as you all know, because you are all witness to it, every single day the president is in optimal physical health. This was a follow-up appointment, and we provided a detailed readout of that physical. I'm happy to give it to you again, and I can inquire further.
With all due respect, an MRI is a very specific procedure. It's done on a part of the body looking for something specific, so it's not generally part of any kind of routine checkup. And in addition, President Trump has said that he wants to be transparent. He told us to ask the doctors, which we have and have not heard back. Why don't we have more information on this?
As I said, I'll check back for you. Go ahead.
Karen, can you update us on the mediation efforts this administration is leading in Sudan, trying to achieve a ceasefire there?
Sure, yes. The United States is actively engaged in efforts to bring about a peaceful resolution to the terrible conflict in Sudan. We remain committed to working with our international partners, including Quad members, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, as well as others, to lead a negotiated peace process that addresses both the immediate humanitarian crisis and the longer-term political challenges. I actually spoke with Secretary Rubio about this morning, as of course there's been, kind of an uptick in recent reporting on the matter, and he assured me that the administration is very much engaged. We're in pretty frequent communication with those Arab partners that I just mentioned, and we want to see this conflict come to a peaceful end, just as we have with so many others, but the reality is it's a very complicated situation on the ground right now. Yes.
Hi, yes. Just trying to go back into the subject of Mexico. Is the Trump administration planning to send U.S. troops to Mexico to combat drug cartels, as reported by other outlets?
That's not something I would confirm from this podium if it were happening, so I will not comment on that.
Wow. Wow, that's a maybe. That's a
Why
maybe.
did the president decide not to go to the Supreme Court tomorrow? He'd indicated earlier that he might want to go and attend in person.
Yeah.
Now he's saying he's not going to go. Why?
The president did have an interest in attending the Supreme Court hearing tomorrow, as I just expressed how important it is to him, the administration, and the country, this case. But he is traveling to Miami tomorrow, as you all know, to give an economic address with the mayor of Miami and many global business leaders to talk about his historic success with the economy over the past 10 months and talk about sort of where we are headed as a country in terms of our economy. So he'll be traveling tomorrow on the road in Miami. That's why he won't be here, but Secretary Scott Bessent will be in attendance at the hearing tomorrow at the request of the president.
He has said that he doesn't want to export the high-end NVIDIA chips to China, but the Wall Street Journal reported yesterday that there was some question about whether the president would raise this as a possible concession with the Chinese side during his meeting with Xi Jinping. So does the White House consider NVIDIA chip exports to China to be a closed issue right now, or is this an ongoing negotiation between the United States, China, and NVIDIA at this point?
The president has made his position on this very clear, both to the Chinese and also to all of you. He's answered this question directly. As for the most advanced chips, the Blackwell chip, that's not something we're interested in selling to China at this time.
No chips for China.
Does the president think that the results of the Virginia or New Jersey gubernatorial races tomorrow or statewide races tomorrow will in any way reflect a voter sentiment towards his administration?
Look, Annie, I'm not at liberty to talk about the election results, and I certainly won't get ahead of them. I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals that may or may not happen tonight. We'll have to watch and see. And I'm sure you'll hear directly from the president tomorrow on that point.
Quickly on Snap, just really quickly. Is there anything that prompted the president's tweet this morning? Because it did seem quite different from some of his other communications about Snap. It seemed a little bit out of the left field. I'm just wondering if he had a conversation or if there's anything you're aware of that caused him to decide to, at around 11 o'clock, to send out that message.
Look, the president is constantly well read on the news, as you know, and he is very much aware we are in day 35 of a government shutdown in which these SNAP benefits, we're pushing them out the door. USDA put out that guidance to the states this morning. The president was aware of that, and he wants to make it very clear that these benefits are in jeopardy because of the Democrats, and they should just open the government so that we can continue getting these funds out the door in an easier and more efficient way.
It's very simple.
There's some new reporting that just dropped a few minutes ago that the Trump administration is negotiating with the makers of Ozempic to sell some weight loss drugs for $149 a month. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. Do you have any more information on that?
Ozempic.
I think the president has said himself in previous Most Favored Nations announcements that this is something that the administration has been engaged in and looking into. I won't get ahead of the president on any future announcements, but I will echo his strong commitment to bringing down drug prices in this country. And you've heard it directly from Secretary Kennedy and Dr. Marty Makary and his entire Health and Human Services team, how committed the president is to bringing down the cost of drugs, and we're working with pharmaceutical companies to do that every day.
Very quickly, Caroline, on SNAP. I know it's been asked, and I know we just asked it, but I want to put a fine point on it. You talked about the president's post here, and he wrote that SNAP benefits will only be given when the radical left Democrats open up the government. I understand your previous answers, but as written, how would that not violate a court order as it's written?
I've now answered this question several times, Gabe. We are complying with the court's order. We are getting the payments out the door as quickly as we can. USDA sent the guidance to the state. The president is referring to future SNAP payments. He does not want to have to keep tapping in to an emergency fund and depleting it. In the case of a catastrophe in this country, he wants to have those funds preserved, as they should be. And he's made it very clear Democrats should reopen the government. I have one final positive note for all of you. I told you I would keep you posted when the White House would resume public tours. Well, I'm pleased to announce the Office of the First Lady has reopened the doors for public tours on Tuesday, December 2nd. There will be an updated route, of course, for guests in light of the ballroom construction that's taking place, but we very much look forward to celebrating the holiday season. And the public and members of Congress and anyone who wants to come visit the First Lady's beautiful decorations is welcome to go to whitehouse.gov/visit to sign up for a tour. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the first White House press conference that we have had in around 2 weeks. I missed doing these with you guys a couple times a week, and I think some of you guys have missed it as well. They are back. President Trump was in Asia for like a week or a week and a half. He came back. He's been busy. Now the gates are open again. Now we have access. So I'm very happy we are back to doing these sort of coverage, these live breaking news coverage events. I like them a lot. Because it's been 2 weeks, we have a lot to talk about. And probably the first thing I want to talk about real quick with you folks, if I can kind of get a grip on this here, is that we are kind of tentatively talking about engaging in select targeted strikes, not just on Venezuelan cartel operations on the Venezuelan mainland. We're talking about that, of course. Maybe that's happening very soon. There seems to be some type of military buildup, some naval buildup off the coast of Venezuela. I would expect action in Venezuela very soon. But we're also talking about something perhaps in Mexico as well. Mexico is effectively a cartel-operated nation, if you can even call it a nation. We all know that Claudia Sheinbaum is scared to death of the cartels if she's not directly working with them personally. The cartels have proven to be a menace in not just Mexico, but up here in the United States as well. And so right now we're having a conversation. I mean, we were just explicitly talking about it. The White House press secretary was explicitly talking about not only targeted strikes on the Venezuelan mainland, which is a maybe kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, but also boots on the ground in Mexico in order to carry out some type of anti-cartel operations. Maybe also kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We can't talk about that right now. Wink, right? So that is another dynamic that is unfolding. Now, let's talk about the shutdown real quick. Okay. Right now, kind of the leading theory, and this is not a confirmation, it's not a promise, it is a theory, seems to be somewhat substantiated, is that the government shutdown is going to come to an end tomorrow. The Senate votes again for the 15th time tomorrow to reopen the government. The reason why tomorrow as opposed to some other date is because the Senate Democrats have been waiting to reopen the government until after the New York City mayoral election had come to a close. Well, that election takes place tonight between Sliwa and Cuomo and Mamdani. People are voting. If you live in New York, you got to go vote, make the right decision. I think legally, maybe I'm not allowed to tell you who to vote for, but we know at least who not to vote for. We can say that. Another wink, wink, nudge, nudge situation here. So go out and vote in New York. And then maybe the government's going to reopen tomorrow. This will be the 15th vote tomorrow. In fact, this morning, about 3 hours ago, the senators met today. They voted for the 14th time today to keep it shut down. So maybe tomorrow after tonight's election in New York City, the government is going to reopen. I do think that this election in New York there's an idiom I can use. I think in a lot of ways, it's going to be sort of the canary in the coal mine. Not for the country at large, but for the Democrat Party at least. What happens in New York City tonight, in a lot of ways, I really do believe is the canary in the coal mine. And what I mean by that is this election in New York, really predominantly between Cuomo and Mamdani, who do the Democrats choose? Which path do they want? Do they want the more kind of moderate Democrat, if you can describe Cuomo that way, old school, slightly more moderate Democrat, or do you want the radically progressive Ugandan Islamic communist who hates white people, who eats food off of the floor with his bare hands like some type of animal? Or do you want that? And so the Democrats in New York, they have a decision to make. Really, everybody in New York has a decision to make. Which path do you want? You really only have two paths. It doesn't really seem like Sliwa, the Republican candidate, doesn't really seem like he has an option. Doesn't seem like he has a chance in hell at winning is what I'm trying to say. In fact, Donald Trump last night came out and kind of begrudgingly endorsed Cuomo. Donald Trump, he said, listen, if you're in New York, you got to vote for Cuomo. Sliwa is not going to win. The numbers don't line up. Donald Trump said, we can't have Mamdani. This is doomsday catastrophic. Imagine if New York City, the most iconic city in the world, the economic capital of the world, is being operated by a Ugandan radical Islamic communist who's talking about raising taxes on white people specifically to pay for all of his communist policies. So Donald Trump last night got directly involved and said, you got to vote for Cuomo. And so when I said that this election, the outcome of tonight's election in New York really is going to be the canary in the coal mine, so to speak, I think this is a Democrat Party referendum. Which path do they want to go down? Are the Democrats as a party, are they going to try to moderate themselves and say, listen, we have become too progressive. We are too radically progressive. We are alienating centrist voters. We need to kind of swing the pendulum back to the middle here. We need to moderate ourselves. So we're going to vote for Cuomo. Or are they going to say, you know what? Actually, our problem over here on the Democrat side of the aisle is that we are not radically progressive enough. We need to become even more radically progressive. We need to embrace communism. That's what we need to do over here in the Democrat Party. Canary in the coal mine. They've got to choose their path tonight. And the reason why I'm using this phrase, canary in the coal mine, is because I think that this will be a domino, right? What happens in New York, I think this will impact midterms. This will set the tone. It'll be the first domino in a series of dominoes. It'll set the tone for midterms, and it'll very likely set the tone for the presidential election in 2028. If Democrats in this country, they say, well, Mamdani won the election in New York. The mayor of New York is a literal communist. What does that mean for the Democrat election, the open primary in 2028? You're going to have, so I think really this is going to be very impactful. Beyond that, while we are speaking about New York City election coverage, let me ask you all a question here, because I do need to wrap up and get going so I can get some other work taken care of here today. Would you, ladies and gentlemen, like to do live breaking news New York City election coverage tonight? Otherwise, we could just do a normal show at 7 p.m. Eastern. We could just do a normal regular show. Or we could sit here for a couple hours tonight, and we could monitor all the news as it's coming in, keep an eye on the polls, look at the numbers, break all of it down. We could do breaking news live New York City election coverage tonight if you all would like that. It's up to you. Really, it depends on whether or not you guys are interested in that. So I'm going to take a look. I see everybody in the Rumble chat is saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. The YouTube chat was about 10 seconds behind. So, okay, so I'm looking at the YouTube chat. Everybody says, let's do it. Yes. That sounds Kino, Zol, Based, Zaste. Okay, we can do it. All right, okay. Then I will come back tonight. I'll go get lunch. I'll take a little break, spend some time with my family. I'll come back tonight, and we will do it. We're going to be covering all of it. So everybody, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button on Rumble and on YouTube. Everybody, thank you. Thank you very much for being here. I really do appreciate it, sincerely. God bless everybody. We will be back tonight. We're doing all of it, but I need to grab some lunch. In fact, I haven't even had breakfast yet, so I need to go have breakfast. So tonight, be here. You got to come back tonight. I'll see you folks later in a couple hours. I don't know exactly what time, but whenever it makes sense, I'll be here. Thank you all very much. And until then, God bless and stay safe. And really, I'll see you soon before you even realize it. So everybody, see you in a couple hours. Thank you all for tuning in this morning, though. Thank you very much. Thank you.